Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Welcome to our webinar. My name is Ann Retho, and I will be your host today. We're thrilled to have you join us for this exciting discussion on enhancing efficiency and compliance in your global trade operations. You are in the right place if you are interested in export compliance and/or commodity screening. A quick housekeeping note before we get started. This webinar is live, but don't worry if you missed something or you joined after we got started. We are recording it. Throughout today's session, we encourage you to ask questions using the Q&A box located at the bottom of your screen. We'll have time for live Q&A at the end of the webinar, and we would love to address your questions directly. If you're joining through LinkedIn Live, feel free to join the conversation there. We will be monitoring it as well. So today with me, I have Michael Ronayne, a seasoned leader in enforcement in the export space. So thanks, Mike, for hopping on. Really appreciate it. So together, Mike and I will talk through some of the challenges of export compliance, go through some recent enforcement cases, and explore actionable solutions to streamline your processes, reduce risk, and ensure compliance. So without further ado, Mike, I'm going to hand it over to you to take us through some of those enforcement actions.
Thanks, Ann. So since this month we're going to be focused on export compliance, I thought what we could do is maybe talk a little bit about some recently published cases and sort of kind of walk you through what went wrong, what some of the criminal conduct was, and give you a little insight as to how investigators look at these. In terms of my background, for more than 20 years, I was a special agent with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, as well as the United States Customs Service. And in my time, I both investigated and supervised the investigation of hundreds of export investigations or investigations involving national security issues. There's many federal statutes and regulations governing export control and export compliance. And the list of prohibited trade partners published by OFAC, Commerce, and State grows exponentially every month. So it's important to be as thorough as possible when conducting due diligence checks prior to engaging in an export from the United States. And really right now, as much, if not more than ever, the federal agencies that investigate these types of violations, HSI, the Department of Commerce, and FBI, are going to be really hyper-focused on companies unlawfully exporting to places like Russia, China, and Iran. So today I'm going to review two cases of export violations which were announced recently in press releases by United States attorneys' offices. I'm going to sort of quickly break down some of the criminal conduct and discuss how the violations took place. Now, one thing to keep in mind as we walk forward with criminal export violations, these crimes involve intent. So these people made a conscious decision to violate the law, and they knew what they were doing was wrong in these types of cases. One key point about intent: the U.S. government's not looking to criminally charge someone that makes a mistake. So intent is critical. That's why collection of the evidence in these types of cases, by doing things like search warrants, which often identify documents, undercover operations, and witness interviews, are so important in identifying the knowledge aspect and the state of mind during these investigations. And just keep in mind, as we've discussed in previous webinars, the penalties for these violations can be quite severe. So let's take a look at the first case. And this involves an indictment that was handed down last month in the Eastern District of New York. And one thing to remember is that indictments are allegations. The defendant has not been proven guilty of any of these allegations yet. And this particular indictment alleges that Natalia Mazzolina orchestrated a scheme to circumvent U.S. export control laws by falsifying documents and transshipping controlled items through third-party locations to avoid detection. More specifically, Mazzolina was involved in a conspiracy with Russian freight forwarders to export oil and gas equipment from the United States to Russia. So in looking at the press release, there are a couple things from this case that really show intent. One is that she made a statement about how her clients were making payments through banks in third-party countries to essentially avoid detection because they were, and this is a quote, currently sanctioned with USA. So on its face, this is a pretty clear-cut money laundering violation, as they're specifically, and she and her co-conspirators are specifically avoiding the true source country for the funds, and they're transferring money internationally in furtherance of the export violation. So as an agent, this is really what you're looking for in terms of evidence and the mindset. In addition, she's alleged to have falsified export documents to the U.S. government that hid the facts that these products were in fact destined for Russia. So just to that point, during an export transaction, as many of you know, documents are filed in the automated export system, or AES, if the shipment is over $2,500 in value or requires an export license. And some of the things that you need to include are what the goods are, the harmonized tariff schedule, value, destination, and any of the information involved in the transaction. So it's likely, based on these charges, that she intentionally filed or caused someone to file false information in AES. For this and the other conduct, Mazzoline is facing charges for exporting controlled goods without a license, conspiracy to commit money laundering, and filing false export documents. If convicted, she's facing up to 20 years for each export violation, 20 years for the money laundering, 10 years on the smuggling counts. So before we jump into the next case, one of the things I was often asked as an agent was how does this type of conduct, or how do these cases come to the attention of the government? And really, there's a number of ways. There are confidential sources that provide information to the government. There are tips from industry. The big agencies that conduct these investigations, HSI, FBI, and Commerce, typically do outreach and speak with people in industry. Sometimes during these visits, we're given information. CBP might interdict a package at the border outbound and report back to HSI, or even as part of an investigation, developing new information that leads you to a different aspect of the case, or maybe in a different case entirely. So the second case was an indictment in the District of Oregon, and this one's involving illegal export, again, to Russia, of this time a controlled aircraft system. Again, this is an indictment, meaning the facts of the case were presented to a federal grand jury, and they decided that this individual's conduct met the elements of crime alleged. But again, defendants are presumed innocent until they're convicted or plead guilty. In this case, Sanjay Kaushik of India was indicted for conspiring to export controlled commodities to Russia. Specifically, he conspired to export aviation parts with dual use in military applications, as well as a navigation and flight control system through his company in India, and then ultimately on to Russia. Now, during the application process, Kaushik falsely claimed that the item was destined for India and would be used in a civilian application for a helicopter. One of the specific items, an attitude heading reference system, which is used in navigation and flight control, is controlled for export from the United States and requires a license for export from the U.S. Department of Commerce. So when we're talking about controlled items and we're looking at an investigation, there's essentially four things you want to look at as an agent, and we'll apply it to this specific example. Is the item controlled or require a license for export? Yes, in this case, it does. Was a legitimate license in place for the export? In this case, there was not. So during the application process, it appears as though this individual said this item was ultimately destined for India, when in fact it was destined for Russia. So no, that's not a legitimate license, even if one was issued. Was the defendant aware of the license requirement? Obviously, that's a yes. He went through the application process. And was there an export or an attempt to export this controlled item? And again, yes. So ultimately, in this case, the item was intercepted before it was exported. But at that point, if it's put into the export stream, the violation has been committed. If not for the interdiction of CBP, this item would have gone. So there's really not a big difference there in terms of charging, based on the fact that the item didn't ultimately leave the U.S., but it was the intention of this individual. So again, some severe penalties. The maximum penalties for these crimes, again, include up to 20 years in prison, $1 million in fines. So, just a little bit of insight there on some export violations, some of the things the government considers But the main takeaway really moving forward is you need to be very, very careful in engaging in export transactions. Ensure you're conducting thorough due diligence, especially when you're dealing with new customers. So with that, I'll send it back to you, Ann.
Thanks, Mike. That was great. I find it so interesting hearing about like the penalties and everything. So appreciate you sharing that.
Of course.
I am going to now walk us through the Byte tool. Just do a quick product demo of the commodity screening. So one of the things that we are doing here at Byte is, as I said earlier, trying to streamline processes and make the compliance process easier. And Mike, like you said, just give people access to the tools that they need in order to complete the due diligence. So I'm just going to share my screen, and I'm going to turn off my video. I'm not quite sure with my Wi-Fi and sharing at the same time. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. All right, so the Byte app is accessible from bytedata.io. So this is our website here, and just log in at the top. And as you saw there, free trials are available. So at the end of the webinar, if you do want to head over to the website and join a free trial, you're welcome to do so. It's right there. But going back to the app, if you are setting up a free trial, there will be the opportunity to have a little, you can register right down here. If you've already registered, then you can select your login here and sign in from right there. So as I said, today I'm going to focus more on commodity screening. Just to run a few sample HS codes. You can head over to the screening tab over here. And in this case, I'm going to be screening products. And you can just go ahead and actually enter your HS code right here. And I'm blanking on the one that I wanted to search because it seems fake. Okay, there we go. 4231. So if you know your HS code, in just a few quick seconds, you can search your HS code there. And again, just looking at exports in particular, you can click over here on lens and select specific lenses that you are interested in. So in this case, for exports, I'm going to look at controlled or licensable commodities, dual use commodities, high priority battlefield. Let's see. And all right. And I can apply all of those. If you wanted to click through and deselect any of those, you can, but in this case, I'll just hit apply. And you can see you have 62 results here returning. So if this were my HS code, I would do a little bit further due diligence and make sure that I have everything that I need to not only export it, but also take a look at the end user. I'm also able to save that filter. So save this as export controls, confirm, so that the next time I come in to search an HS code, which I can now search another one, this next HS code is for semiconductor manufacturing material. So I can put that code in here and run it against that same filter, export controls, and get my 10 results. And again, those are hitting on lists like EU restrictive measures applying to Russia, high priority battlefields, Russian industry sector sanctions. And each of these records can be opened and you can look at the detail of it. To speed things up a little bit, you can also enter multiple HS codes at the same time. So in this case, I will add another code here. And you can add up to 5 entries in one search. And when you do get your results, they are broken up so you can look at each one individually. So in this case, I'll open my next one. You can download the list as well if you wanted to download that and save it with your records. And again, similar lists, including the dual use code on the EU tariff. So just an example there. And again, this is if you have one-off HS codes, you can search them there. Alternatively, if you have more, you can use the bulk feature. And so I'll open that up. And again, there are templates available. In this case, I've downloaded a template for export. So I'll just go ahead and select that. And I'm going to upload my document here, and you can see all the fields are matched. And then you hit next, and you can save your results here as a ticket. So these get saved into your analytics vault. In this case, I'll save that as compliance check January, submit. And you can see I'm getting quite a few hits over here, record count. My scoring is complete, and I can now see my results below. So scrolling down, you can start to explore. So in this case, my input was 841122. So this is on New Zealand's Russian sanctions trade measures. It is also on Russian industry sector sanctions, part 5 and part 4. And from there, after you've reviewed your results there, because I saved it as a ticket, I'm going to head over to my vault and open up my vault, and you can see that ticket here saved. And you can open it, you can see what you input, you can download a PDF, and you can again review those results and export your data. So that's a very easy way to just do a quick check on all of the HS codes that you are exporting. Take a look, make sure that additional information is not required. Also, another really useful tool within Byte is the Byte GPT. And GPT is an open AI integration that communicates both with Byte data and the open internet. So in this case, you can put in a prompt. I have one saved. So in this case, I'm going to ask, are there any thresholds or de minimis reporting requirements on export goods that are listed in SCOMET Appendix 3, Category 1? So that's referring to chemicals. There are 2 levels of control, one pre-export license and another post-export reporting. However, neither seems to allow for very low concentrations to be excluded from reporting. So just a technical question on what's required with exports, and I can go ahead and press send. And this sometimes does take a minute or two, just because it is going out to the OpenAI servers. So in its response, it defines what I'm looking at, references the Chemical Weapons Convention, talks through the different licensure and reporting, and ultimately tells me there are no exemptions for very low concentrations. So again, what I typically use the GPT for is to ask questions like this. Then I copy my output, head back to my vault, open up the ticket that I was working in, and then save that. Oops, forgot to click edit. Save that so that I have that output here in my ticket for future audit or compliance checks. If I need to go back and revisit why something was done or why it wasn't done, then I have that there. You can also, if you are on a team, notify your team members of an update and use this as kind of a workflow tool amongst your team as well. So again, GPT, just bringing it all into one place. Also, GPT, you can ask questions about cross rulings. I know less important for our export audience, but just something to take a look at. And finally, one thing I did want to highlight, just because it was recently updated, is our Bite You courses. So these are courses that are available through the app on various topics: import compliance, export compliance, forced labor, C-SCRIM, trade-based money laundering. So these are great if you have a new team member coming on. If you are more experienced in import compliance and you want a little taste of what export compliance might be, or vice versa, just some useful courses that you can access. Each one has about 8 lessons in it. Comes with a training guide as well that you can print out, carry along with you, and go through and just get a taste for some of these topics. So that is just a bit of an intro to Bite and the various tools that can help streamline your compliance processes. We have an exciting, I'm just going to stop sharing. We have some exciting things coming out on the roadmap in the near future. So in addition to the new Bite You courses that have been recently updated and published, we also have a new bulk screening tool coming out soon, hopefully by the end of the month. So that is going to be very exciting. It's going to make automating your searches in bulk much faster. And so we will be probably doing a demo of that sometime in February, just to keep everyone informed. And coming down the pipeline, a lot of other exciting things based on feedback from users like those listeners that we have on today. So with that, I think that's the end of the demo for the day, unless, Mike, there was anything that I skipped over that you'd be interested in me showing our listeners today.
No, nothing additional for me, Ann. Thank you.
Okay. So let me just check our Q&A. If anyone does have a question, please feel free to pop it in the Zoom or in the LinkedIn conversation. We'll give everyone just a minute. I know the last time we had some technical questions. Mike, just while we're waiting, one question I know that does come up, or that I've been asked recently, is are there any, in your experience in the investigations that you've seen, were there any common mistakes or oversights that businesses would make in dealing with dual use or controlled items that led to enforcement actions more often than not?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think, in terms of sort of commonalities, most of the larger companies have very, very good understandings of how their products are classified, what they're manufacturing, what they're trading in. However, we did oftentimes see some mistakes where some of the smaller companies that were maybe a bit newer to exporting goods from the U.S. and maybe didn't have a clear understanding of how their products were classified. So I think for any newer business, or if you do have a question, regardless of the size of your business, you really need to identify very specifically by, working with, maybe commerce in this case, to identify how your good is classified and if there are any restrictions for exporting it from the U.S. or to any countries.
Great, thanks. I'm not seeing anything come in through the Q&A function today. So I think with that, we can call it a day. Thank you so much, Mike, for hopping on and sharing those enforcement cases. And for anyone who is interested in a Bite demo or additional information, please feel free to go to our website or email me directly. We encourage you to explore how Bite can work for your organization. And also I did want to just mention today that we also have the Bite Pod, where we bring on industry leaders to get insights on industry trends, imports, exports. We have a crystal ball episode for 2025 that just came out. So that's available on all major streaming platforms as well. And just a reminder that export compliance doesn't have to be overwhelming if you have the right tools, the right insights, and the right support. So please feel free to use us and talk to us so that we can help you out. So thanks again for your time, and we look forward to seeing you at future webinars.